Hello, and welcome back to Zenin Fanfics. Today we're starting an exciting new series. What if Deku had cat mutation quirk? If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe for more content. The story we're featuring is written by LotsieLotto on archiveofourown.org. You can find all the relevant links in the description, so be sure to check out the author's profile and say hello. Now, let's dive into the story. Izuku was 4 when his quirk came in, and 4 when the bullying began. Kaken, why are quirks so cool? I can't wait till I get mine. Izuku said happily, as his friend showed off the explosions. The two were alone in the forest. Izuku had always wondered why Kaken never invited his other friends, but to quote him, they were just boring extras. I know. Then once you get your quirk, we'll be a hero duo. Bakugo yelled, holding up his fist, surprising Izuku, who fell back into one of the bushes, letting out a small yelp. Peeped! You're so clumsy, Bakugo began laughing, pointing at the bush before he saw his friend's head poke out, now adorned with features that weren't there before. Ow! I don't know why I fell. The boy pouted, as Bakugo stared at him with wide eyes. Izuku, check the top of your head, Bakugo said, moving closer. Izuku's eyes went wide. Oh no, was there a bug on him? Nervously moving his shaky hands up to his head, he touched his green curls, only to suddenly yelp as he was missing something on either side of his head. Where's my ears go? Oh my god. I can't hear, he yelped, making Bakugo look at him annoyed. Idiot. I mean the top of your head. Izuku paused, moving his hands up more, before squeaking as his hands touched something fluffy on his head that he could feel. Experimentally poking and rubbing whatever they were, he paused. I have ears. Wait, is it my quirk? He yelled happily, feeling something move behind him. As he looked back, he noticed a long green and purple tail swaying behind him, making him yelp. I have a tail. You have a tail, Bakugo yelled, grabbing his friend's shoulders as they both looked at him in shock. Finally, you got your quirk. Now we can train together, he yelled like the feral child he is. Kaken W just turned 4. We probably show he was cut off by his friend, tackling him playfully as they rolled around. Laughing and giggling ensued. As the two fought in the woods, as time passed, Izuku got up, tired, rubbing his eyes. My balance is weird now. He pouted before one of his ears twitched, hearing Bakugo behind him. Surprise attack, the boy yelled, making Midoriya cry out in surprise. To the hell. Bakugo paused, looking around as if Izuku wasn't in front of him on the ground. Where'd you go, Kaken, what are you talking about? I'm right, he What the hell? Bakugo yelled in fear at hearing his friend's disembodied voice. Izuku looked confused, getting up and waving his hand in front of Bakugo's face, only for Bakugo to turn suddenly and smack him in the nose accidentally. Oh wow! Izuku yelped out, falling to the ground once again with his hand to his nose, now dripping a small bit of BLD. Holy SHD. Kaken. Ani told you not to swear, Izuku, you went invisible. Izuku's eyes were wide, as were his friends. I did, he said happily, before quickly moving into a spout of mumbling, making his friend's excitement turn into slight annoyance. Even your hair's purple now. Or like parts of it, Bakugo said, poking his friend's ears, making Midoriya shiver. That feels weird. I'm not used to feeling anything on the top of my head. He pouted, covering his ears. We gotta figure out more stuff about your quirk, Bakugo said, determined, making Izuku's smile wider than usual. His teeth had gone different too, with longer and straighter teeth. Freaky smile, Bakugo said, his eyes narrowing, as Midoriya's ears went down slightly. It looks freaky. Midoriya's ears lowered, looking like he was on the verge of tears, making his friend roll his eyes. I was joking, Bakugo said before lighting up. We gotta go show off your quirks to Ani and Old Hag, he yelled, grabbing Izuku's hand and leading them, Izuku's face immediately lighting up. As the boys ran, they soon found themselves back in the Bakugo household, empty as their parents were having a barbecue out back. As Inko smiled, chatting to Mitsuki, Mizura cooking some sausages on the grill. Mama, I got my quirk, Izuku yelled happily, Bakugo running in front of him like always. The adults turned quickly to Izuku, their eyes widened at the sudden change in appearance. "Oh my goodness!" Inko cried out, picking up her son and hugging him tight. "You look amazing, sweetie." Izuku yelped out as he was crushed by his mom, holding him tightly. When she finally released him, he was quickly fawned over by Mitsuki. "You look adorable." Mitsuki smothered, holding his cheeks in her hands. "Your little ears. Way cuter than Katsuki here." She joked, looking at her son who had his arms crossed. "He's not cute. He's cool." Katsuki yelled, "Quit treating him like a baby," he said, rolling his eyes. As Izuku lit up from Kachin's praise, they made eye contact, Katsuki smirking before making small popping with his quirk. "I mean, obviously not as cool as my quirk, but way better than those other extras." Oh, and something like really cool happened. Izuku yelled, bouncing on his feet happily. "Kakin, can you try to scare me again?" Izuku asked, making Inko look slightly worried, smiling sympathetically. "Sweetie, I think if you ask it won't surprise." "Boo!" Katsuki yelled behind his friend. A pretty pathetic try, however it was enough. "Ah!" Izuku yelped, jumping back like a cat, but they didn't see his feet touch the ground. He was gone. "Ah!" Inko screamed out, Misuru quick to comfort her, as Mitsuki prepared to scold Katsuki for making him disappear. "Where did Izuku go?" "I am still here, Mama." Izuku tugged on his mom's shirt, making her look down to see no one, but the indent of a small hand on her shirt tugging down. "I went invincible." Oh gosh, it's invisible, sweetie she said, gently trying to find her son despite him not being translucent. When she did, she gently patting his head. "There you are, I was so scared she said, leaning down in front of him. "Can you come back, baby?" Izuku looked nervous. I don't know how. He pouted. "How did you come back last time?" Mizura asked. "I punched him," Katsuki said casually, making the adults look at him quickly, Inko and Mizura with concern, and Mitsuki looking pissed. "You punched him?" Mitsuki yelled at Bakugo, who yelled back immediately. He disappeared in front of my eyes, and the spoke right next to my face. What was I meant to do? He yelled angrily. Izuku covered his ears from the volume. As he did, he faded back into view, Inko's eyes lighting up. "There you are. You all right, sweetie? You want to go home?" She asked him quietly over the yelling. He gently nodded his head. Picking him up, he hid his face in his mum's top, continuing to cover his ears. "Mizura, Mitsuki, if it's all right, me and Izu will take off now." She smiled gently, Mitsuki and Katsuki immediately ceasing their arguing. "Ah, all right, remember to call, and feel free to drop off Izuku anytime. God knows he's much better than this kid," Mitsuki said, gently ruffling Katsuki's hair, who just rolled his eyes. Inko quickly gave a peck on the cheek of both Mizura and Mitsuki before leaving, waving with one arm while Izuku was in the other. Once home, Inko gently put him down, sighing. She wanted to stay with Izuku for a bit longer, but on her way home, she'd been asked to come in for a couple hours at the hospital. "All right, sweetie, I'm going to need to go into work soon." Izuku frowned, his ears going down. It broke her heart. "I'm so sorry, but I promise once I'm back at tea time, I'll make us a big meal to celebrate." She gently kissed him on the forehead before pausing. "May. Lot of mutant quirks before. So, sweetie, is it okay if for today I leave the new babysitter a list of what not to have? Maybe things cats can't eat," she said, grabbing a whiteboard pen for the whiteboard on the fridge. "Any requests of foods you don't want, Izu?" she asked, receiving a shake of the head. It took her a while of researching before she had written a list. To babysitter, Izuku's quirk just came in today, and we haven't had time to check what he can and can't have. So if you could, please don't let him have these foods love: oranges and citrus fruits, grapes and raisins, chocolate, a couple types of meat. So if he wants snacks, we have some chicken in the fridge for him. Laughing face. She smiled, sticking up the board and looking down at Izuku. "All right, I've written these. I'm not sure if they will do anything, but better safe than sorry." She smiled, and he nodded. After a while, the babysitter arrived. Inko gave him one last hug before she set off for work, leaving him in her care. Izuku didn't like the babysitter. She didn't want to play heroes, wasn't paying attention to him, and was being rude when he asked. Now it was about 2, and he was getting hungry. Miss, can I have something to eat? Sure, she said, not looking up from her phone before getting up. He lit up, assuming she was getting him food from the fridge. However, she grabbed her bag and opened the front door. Miss, where are you going? And Mama won't be back for ages, he said, upset. The woman rolled her eyes. I got last-minute plans. You can take care of yourself. If you tell her I left, you'll regret it. She glared, slamming the front door and leaving the poor boy alone in the apartment. It had been half an hour, and he was really hungry. Grabbing one of the chairs and moving it, which took a while considering how small he was, he climbed it up to the unit. He looked at the list. Chicken. Tried to reach to open the fridge, standing shakily on the counter. He leaned, almost there, before he fell, tumbling and hitting his side on the ground and yelping. He lay there for a moment before crying, hugging his knees. He couldn't reach, and the only food he could have would make him feel bad. Thinking as he cried, he remembered his mom talking about one of their neighbors. His name was Izawa. He got up, limping slightly, his cheek beginning to bruise as he tried to reach for the door handle. He eventually succeeded, small tears in his eyes because of the pain in his side. He reached the hallway. I think it was 204. Limping to the door, he tried to reach the doorbell and pouted when he couldn't. Knocking on the door, he waited nervously for them to answer. It took a moment before a gruff-looking man answered, long hair drooping over his face. The man's annoyed expression changed to slight surprise upon seeing the small, injured child in front of him. Izawa POV. Why the hell was an injured child in front of his door? Hello? He asked, making the boy flinch slightly. Hi, why you're Izawa, right? The boy asked nervously, his tail swaying nervously behind him. I am. Who are you? I am Izuku. Why you know my mama? He said quietly. That's where he recognized the boy from. It was his neighbor's kid. Inko. What's up? See, could you help me get something? I am really hungry, but I can't reach the fridge. The boy said, his ears pressed back. Sure. Izawa couldn't leave this kid alone. He was clearly injured, and from what the kid just said, alone. Following the small boy, he looked around the apartment before reaching the fridge. It was open, and the poor boy pointed to the chicken packet left unopened in the fridge, which Izawa grabbed and opened, handing it to the boy, who quickly grabbed it and started eating. Kid, where's your mom? Izawa asked. The kid's mom was nice when they'd spoken. She hoped she wasn't secretly neglectful or abusive. As she went to work, she left me with a babysitter. But she left. The boy explained before going back to stuffing his mouth, making Izawa frown. Good, he could rule out abusive or neglectful, but the kid had been left alone. Clearly the babysitter was just assuming the kid could take care of himself, and she could get some quick cash. Trashy people. You're limping, what happened? He asked, making Izuku's ears go down as he looked embarrassed. I tried to get the chicken, but I fell off the unit, he said, upset. I can handle it, though. Heroes can handle injuries, he said proudly, making Izawa smile with sympathy. Sure, but you're not a hero just yet. You're allowed to ask for help, he said, picking up the boy. Even heroes need help sometimes. The boy's eyes lit up, smiling. See, can you help me then? And my ribs really hurt, he said, upset. Izawa nodded, searching in the freezer for some frozen peas, wrapping them in a towel, and giving them to the boy. It was a couple hours till Inko returned, where she found Izuku playing with his hero figures, while Izawa was doing paperwork on one of the tables. Hey, Izawa-san. Inko looked slightly frightened. Hey, Chow, and why are you here? Where's the babysitter? Izuku came knocking on my door, asking for help reaching some food. Apparently, the babysitter bailed. Inko's eyes widened before anger overtook her. She what? Making Izawa surprised, and Izuku cover his ears, which made Inko realize her temper. Sorry, baby. She gently patted her son's head before looking at Izawa. I'm so sorry about this. I thought she would be good. A friend recommended her to me. But you have no idea how much this means to me that you kept my baby safe. Thank you, Izawa. He nodded. It's no problem. Sorry, I couldn't fully protect him, though, for what he said. He fell on his side while trying to reach the food after she left. Inko's eyes went wide, gently lifting her son's shirt to find bruising on the right side of his ribs. "Oh, sweetie, are you okay?" she asked with worry clear in her voice. "Why, yeah. It hurt, but Aizawa-san gave me frozen peas for it," he said happily. She sighed in relief. "Thank goodness," she said, giving him a kiss on the forehead. Just as tensions were soothing, there was a knock at the door. As Inko opened it, it was the babysitter. "All right, brat. Let me in. I gotta get in before your mom's back." The woman cut herself off as she saw who opened the door. The mother glared. "Oh, you've got some nerve coming back here," Inko yelled, moving out so she could yell at the women in the hallway. "Hell hath no fury like a mother scorned," Aizawa mumbled, before realizing that Izuku seemed to be gone. "What does that mean?" Izuku asked, next to Aizawa, who flinched at the disembodied voice. "Kid, where are you?" he asked, looking rather perplexed. Oh, it's my quirk. I don't know how to control it yet, he said nervously. "It's a pretty interesting quirk," Aizawa praised, making Izuku light up. He smiled widely, his form reappearing, but his mouth appearing first. "Creepy. Really?" The boy was bouncing on his toes, a loud purring noise echoing from the room. F it, Aizawa was stealing this kid for himself. When Inko came back in, which he knew she'd giving the babysitter a proper yell 'cause he could hear it, she looked much calmer. "Thank you so much, Aizawa. She's been dealt with." Why did Aizawa feel like that sentence should be concerning, seeing as he's a hero? And why does he feel like he should ignore it for his own safety? "All right. Well, since you're home, I should head home now," Aizawa said, putting the paperwork he'd brought through into a pile to work on later. "Oh, unless you'd like to stay for supper, I understand. If not, this wasn't planned at all, so she said, nervously smiling. "It's the least I can do for all you've done today, I'll decline, but I appreciate the offer," he said, bowing his head slightly as he put his paperwork into his folder. "But don't worry about it. The kid's polite anyways. Honestly, it was easier getting paperwork done here than it was with my cats at home, he joked, making Inko laugh slightly. "All right. Well, if you change your mind, don't hesitate to ask. Have a nice night, Aizawa-san," she said kindly, before patting Izuku's head, motioning to say his goodbyes too. Izuku, in the response, got up and ran to hug Aizawa. Only reaching his leg, much the sentiment was there. Aizawa flinched slightly, before smiling fondly and patting the kid's head, his ears lowering as he did, and a small purring noise coming from the boy. "Goodbye, Mr. Aizawa-san," the boy said happily, before moving back to his mom. Aizawa nodded, before moving the door and leaving. It took some time to figure out some things. "All right, Aizu, you like analyzing quirks, right?" Inko asked her son, holding him on her hip as he nodded eagerly. "We're gonna try figure out your quirk," she said, determined, smiling. "Yay, starting first with food, seeing as that should be the most important part," she said, smiling. "All right, cats can't have citrus fruits, and usually refuse to eat them," she said, reading off a website she'd found. "I'm not going to make you eat them. I would much rather get an allergy test done tomorrow instead. But I want to check if they affect you," she said nervously, not wanting to make her son upset. Grabbing an orange and peeling it, she held it a bit close to her son's nose, who quickly hid his face in her shirt to get away from the smell. "All right, cross that off the list," she said, putting the orange away for later. When Aizawa got home, he didn't expect about an hour later for there to be a knock on the door. Opening it, he found a leftovers box with catsup on today. There was a post-it note on top of it. "Thank you for all your help today, laughing face. Inko and Izuku W. Inko's handwriting was neat. Izuku's on the other hand. It was Izuku's first day back with his quirk, and he was purring with excitement as he got a lift from Aunt Mitsuki and Kaken. "Quit being so loud, fuzzball," Katsuki said, playfully nudging his friend. "I'm sorry, I'm just so excited," he said happily, looking at his friend who was grinning. As they got out of the car, Izuku happily thanked Mitsuki. "It's no problem, sweetie. Oh, Katsuki, before you go, come here," she said, bringing Katsuki behind the car. "I'm going to warn you. People may be rude about Izuku's quirk. A lot of people find mutant quirks weird," she said, looking upset. "Why would they get any say?" Their quirks are SHD. Bakugo said, crossing his arms. Mitsuki sighed. Language, exactly, they're just idiots. So if someone says something bad about Izuku, what are you gonna do? She asked. Bakugo lit up, putting his hand out and making some popping. Beat them up. Demon, right you will, she said, ruffling his hair. All right, give him hell. She grinned as her son ran off to his friend. As the boys entered class, the teachers looked surprised at Izuku's new appearance, as did the students. Whoa, Izuku, you got your quirk, one of the teachers asked, leaning down to him. His tail wagged excitedly as he spoke back. Yeah, I got on Saturday, he said excitedly, and Mama registered it yesterday. Flashback. Hi, I'm here to register my son's quirk, Inko said, holding her son in her arms. The receptionist smiled. Of course, what name would that be? The lady asked. Izuku Midoriya, Inko said politely. Here. And what's the name of the quirk? Inko looked nervously to her son, who thought for a moment before yelling excitedly. Cheshire, he announced happily. The women at the reception laughed slightly, before asking another question. And what does that quirk entail? She asked. The cat features purple streaks, and he can turn translucent, she said, gently bouncing Izuku on her hip. All right, his records will be checked through and changed shortly, she said happily, before they moved and the next customer came. Back in present, it's called Cheshire, he said happily, as his tail swayed behind him. Whoa, it looks so cute, one of the girls behind him said. Kinda lame, the boy with wings behind them said, making Katsuki swerve as Midoriya's ears lowered. The hell did you say? This was how most of Izuku's life went. Now he was 14. Some thought his quirk was adorable, wanted to rub his ears, hear him purr. Some thought his quirk was creepy. His wide smile and ability to go invisible helped cement that idea, even without his mumbling. And the small few that thought his quirk was cool, or didn't really have an opinion on it, rarely stood up for him, as doing so made them infamous too. Except for Katsuki. No matter how many people ganged up on him or called him names, Katsuki was always there to protect him. But not today. Bakugo was off. He'd broken his arm while doing rock climbing and wasn't able to come in. His protector, and the one people respected enough not to attack him, was off. He was alone, and his bullies knew this. It started off small, people tripping him in hallways, which luckily thanks to his quirk usually didn't work. But the intent still hurt. Then when they realized Bakugo wouldn't be in at all today, it got worse. Milk dumped on his head, someone stole his uniform, so he had to go through the day with his PE kit. He was miserable, laying his head down on his desk, as the teacher explained, before yelping as someone grabbed his tail and yanked it. Midoriya, got something to share with the class? His teacher asked, looking rather annoyed. And no, sir. Midoriya smiled widely, clearly nervous. Good. Eyes up front. Midoriya nodded, moving his tail to cover his own lap. It wasn't comfortable, but it beat the alternative. Hey, Bakaniko. As Izuku tried to go outside for lunch, he was stopped by some of his classmates. We got a test up next. Show me your answers, or you'll regret it. Maybe why you should have just studied. Izuku said, his grin appearing, only to drop quickly as he was shoved against the wall, and a sharp punch just below his eye. Don't get smart with me. Give me the answers or else. The boy said, his hands turning into rocks that neared his face. Izuku didn't think. He pushed, and he ran through the crowd of classmates. Get back here. The boy yelled out, his classmates following as he ran. Rushing down the front stairs of the building, Izuku cried out as one of them threw a rock at his head, making him tumble down the stairs, hurting his ankle. He couldn't stop, though. Wobbling as he got up, he continued running, his shoes smacking the ground, harshly feeling as if his feet would bruise. He wasn't sure how long he was running. It felt like half an hour, but it had only been 5 minutes. As Izuku turned the corner, he turned translucent, hoping he could lose them. He could phase through stuff, but only when he concentrated, and he wasn't concentrating at all. So it should come as no surprise what happened next. So then I said dash. The two speaking with one another were cut off as the mouse, Chimera, was hit with some invisible force, being caught by the man next to him. As the two strangers assumed they were being attacked, you can imagine their surprise when a small, clearly badly hurt Catboy was in front of them, fading out of translucence, and looking up panicked. "I'm so sorry. I wasn't looking where I was going." I dash. He was cut off as he heard his bullies round the corner, quickly turning invisible. "Hey, you two seen a green and purple-haired Catboy?" The guy asked impatiently. "Yes, he went down that way," the small chimera replied, pointing down an alley, where the bullies quickly ran down to. As soon as they were out of earshot, the small boy reappeared in front of them. Thank you so much," Dash, he cried out, his ears low as he rubbed his now bruised eye, wincing at the pain. The chimeras gleamed with interest at the boy's appearance and quirk, as with concern. The blond man next to him leaned down. "It's no problem, are you all right?" the chimera asked, as the blond man helped him up. "Why, yes, why? Ah," Dash, he cried out as he tried to put weight on his ankle, his tail trying hard to keep him balanced. "Clearly not," the chimera continued, as the blond man held him upright. "Geez, kid, what happened to you?" the tall, skinny blond man asked, clear concern in his droppy eyes. It's nothing. I just tripped down the stairs." Izuku lied, unsuccessfully. The two looked at each other before the chimera spoke, coming closer. "Would that bruised eye be from the stairs too, or from that group of bullies following you?" Izuku winced at his tone. "The stairs," Midoriya said, more like a question than a statement. "It's fine, though. I can get home, I think." Usually he could, but he'd been running so desperately that he wasn't sure where he was. If you would like, one of my staff has a healing quirk." The chimera spoke, smiling. If Izuku had remembered stranger danger, he probably wouldn't have gone with two strangers, but he was too tired to. So he didn't. "Why, yes, please," Izuku said quietly, being helped to walk by the skinny man. "My name is Nizu, and this is Tashinori," Nizu explained, smiling as they walked. "Izuku Midoriya," he said, before pausing. Where did he know the name Nizu from? Quirks like his were not common, and seeing from his structure, he seems more likely to be an animal with a quirk than the other way around. Come to think of it, what animal was he even? He seemed to be almost a mouse, yet certain parts screamed bear, and, "Wow, you sure have a lot of ideas," Nizu said, startling the injured boy from his thoughts that he now realized he'd been saying out loud. BLD hit his face, lowering his head along with his ears. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was mumbling Dash," he said nervously as he hopped along with Tashinori. "It's no problem. Some thoughts are too fast to just be kept in our heads." Nizu smiler, making Midoriya look surprised. People usually found his mumbling creepy. "As for who I am, I'm a principal, for a hint." A principal? Most schools he'd heard of didn't have animal quirk principals, sometimes due to discrimination. So chances are it's a place high enough that the discrimination can't affect him, maybe a private or hero school. Private schools are very picky, though. So unless it was a school specific to mutants, chances are he wouldn't be able to be one. A hero school? But the only hero school he knew has an animal principal was, "Why, you're from UA?" Midoriya yelled out in shock, before looking guilty. Oh God, I knocked into the principal of UA Dash. He covered his mouth, embarrassed. "I am. And as I said before, don't worry about it. You're clearly worse for wear than I am," Nizu said, making Midoriya laugh nervously. As they made their way, Izuku soon passed out. The adrenaline completely faded, and now all he wanted was rest. So, seeing as Izuku wouldn't know, Tashinori turned into his All Might form, carrying the young boy in his arms. They surprisingly managed to avoid any fanfare on the way. When Izuku woke, his eyes opened groggily, letting out a hiss as his eyes were bombarded with lights. Quickly shutting his eyes and letting his eyes adjust, he heard a voice next to him. "You're awake," an elderly woman's voice. Looking over, he realized who it was. "Recovery girl." "Why, you're recovery girl." Dash, he yelped in surprise and admiration, before hissing slightly as his ankle feeling weird. "I am. Your ankle's wrapped in some bandages. My quirk healed your eye and most of the damage, but take it easy, dear," she said kindly, holding out some gummy bears. "For your energy." His eyes lit up. Thank you," he said, smiling widely before eating them. As Recovery Girl was going to begin bringing up some things she noticed, a very familiar man and a stranger walked in. "Chio, Mike was being an idiot and heard his dash. The man paused, staring at Izuku. Izuku, and Mr. Aizawa-san, you work at UA? Izuku asked, hands over his mouth. Yes, I do. What are you doing here? Aizawa asked bluntly, moving over to the boy as the man. He'd come and whined like a much lesser man. I fell down the stairs, Izuku lied. Well, technically withheld the truth. True, I think I have brain damage. The man Izuku now recognized as present Mike whined, going over to Recovery Girl. That's not a new development. Recovery Girl retorted before giving his a kiss on his cheek. He immediately stopped whining. Why your present Mike dash, Izuku said, eyes wide, before realizing. Only heroes worked at UA, and Aizawa had always shared some similarities to one of his favorite underground hero. He just never made the connection before. Why your Eraserhead? Midoriya asked, finally forming the connection, making Aizawa look at him with slight surprise. Surprised you knew who I am, Aizawa said, making Midoriya look nervous. Why your name rarely shows up on forums, mainly just on villain forums. But when it does, it's so impressive. He paused, realizing what he'd just said, some of the heroes in the room raising an eyebrow. I'm not a villain. It's just a lot of the time, the only way to find out more facts from my analysis is to search their dash. Analysis? A voice perked up next to him. How hadn't he noticed Nizu was right there? Izuku flinched away dramatically before reaching for his bag. I like analyzing heroes and villains. And their quirks, he said, getting quieter after each word as he took out his latest notebook. Sorry, it's very nerdy dash. Nizu's eyes gleamed with interest, slightly scaring the UA staff. Oh no. Nonsense. If it would be fine with you, would you allow me to read through some of the pages? Izuku's eyes went wide, his tail swishing behind him. No one ever wanted to see his theories. Oh, of course, he said excitedly, holding out the notebook to the Chimera, who took it and began reading. There was a tense silence as Nizu read. Midoriya was sitting nervously, hoping that the notes weren't bad by Nizu's standards, and the UA staff nervously staring, hoping this boy hadn't managed to get Nizu's attention. These theories are very interesting and in-depth, along with the information being very precise. If I may ask, how did you get this information? It shouldn't be public, Nizu asked, raising an eyebrow at the boy as he returned his book. Oh, I usually like watching villain fights. I get warned a lot to stay away, but they're just so cool. The heroes, not the villains dash, he said nervously. And since my quirk can make me translucent, it means I can follow the heroes or villains afterwards to find out more, he said happily, not seeming to realize what he'd done. Aizawa was staring at him before speaking. Izuku, you're aware that's stalking, right? As Aizawa said that, Izuku's ears went back, quickly trying to explain himself. And no, it's not. I'm just observed dash. There was silence as Izuku's ears went up, his face paling before covering his mouth with his clawed hands, his ears pressing against his skull. Oh God, I've been stalking heroes dash. He looked so mortified before one of his hands went down to grab his tail to stop it from swaying nervously. Oh God, am I going to get arrested? Or fined? Can't afford that, and his mumbling returned, the staff staring at him, before Aizawa gently patted the boy's head, making Izuku flinch and look up. Relax, kid, you didn't realize, and from what we can tell, it's not like you follow them home. Just don't do it anymore. Yep, and doesn't seem like you interfered with anyone's work, so it shouldn't matter, Nizu said, making Midoriya look slightly guilty. Why, Izuku mumbled quietly. What did you do? Aizawa said, glaring at his neighbor. I didn't mean to, but I was watching a hero fight a villain, and he started running towards me. I had my quirk active, and he was going to escape us, so I tripped him up dash, Izuku said, embarrassed. Mike's eyes widened, staring at the boy. Like a year ago, Mike had an experience similar. Flashback. Mike had been fighting this guy for 5 minutes too long. He wanted to go home and have dinner with Show, and he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Come on, just hand over the trigger, and you'll get a reduced sentence instead of broken eardrums, Mike said, getting frustrated. After a couple more attacks, Mike was temporarily winded, trying to get up quick as the man ran to escape. He was going to lose him. That was until he watched the man seem to trip over some imaginary object. "The hell?" the man yelled. Well, that was weird, but made his job easier. End of flashback. "That was you." Mike yelled, accidentally activating his quirk as he pointed at Izuku. No, I wouldn't." He looked embarrassed before sighing. "Oh, okay, I'm really sorry. It was just he was going to escape." "No, don't apologize, little listener. You really helped me out there," Mike said, putting a thumbs up to the boy, who stared at him with stars in his eyes. "Anyways, back to Midoriya. Your ankle will be fine. Just take it easy for the next few days," Recovery Girl said. "Yeah, as if I can," he mumbled quietly, not realizing anyone heard. "Was today a common occurrence?" Recovery Girl asked, looking concerned, making Aizawa and Mike look confused. "What happened today?" Aizawa asked. "Midoriya ran right into me and Tashinori, being chased by a group of classmates," Nizu explained, and before Aizawa could become horrified, he heard the next part. "A sprained ankle, black eye, and some cuts and scrapes," Recovery Girl said, making Aizawa seethe with anger. "It's not common. It's just people find my quirk creepy or useless." Izuku explained, smiling nervously. "Usually my friend Kaken protects me, but he's off with a broken arm." Guess they had been waiting a while." Izuku joked, but it wasn't making anyone laugh. I twitched, looking at the boy. "Do the staff at your school know about this?" "They do, but I'm not very popular with staff either," he said, a small strained smile coming on in Niza's face. "What school did you say this was?" "WI?" Niza blinked, just interested. "Aldera, Junior High," he said nervously, his ears falling back. "Lovely. I have some matters to attend to. If you two would like to attend with me?" Nizu asked, looking at Aizawa and Mike, who nodded. "W8, Izuku yelped nervously before shrinking under their watch. "Be before I leave." "See, could I get an autograph?" He asked nervously, holding out his book to the three. And that was how Izuku was now standing outside UA, fanboying over the autographs and photos he got. Oh my god, he had to tell Kaken. Grabbing his phone and pulling it out, he quickly messaged his friend. "Smiley. Kaken, guess who I just met?" "Blasty who?" "Smiley." Smiley attached a photo with present Mike and Izuku. "Smiley. I met present Mike, Recovery Girl, Eraserhead, and the principal of UA. Oh. Blasty what? Blasty how? Blasty. The one day I am off." Smiley. "If it makes you feel better, I got you some autographs too, .. Blasty, yes." Izuku smiled at his phone, walking home happily. Today ended good. "Come on, Bake, we got a train." Bakugo yelled, now happy his arm was free of his cast, and making Izuku pay for it by dragging him to the beach. It was pretty dirty. By pretty Izuku, meant his mother wouldn't want him to go there without getting a tetanus shot first. "I'm coming, it's too early," Izuku yelled as he ran after his friend. When he finally caught up, Bakugo had climbed onto a fridge and was grinning, pointing at Izuku. "You're so slow. How are you ever going to become a hero if you can't catch up to me?" he yelled, grabbing a can and throwing it at Izuku. "Kaken, you're going to cut me," the boy yelled, dodging the can with practice skills. "I won't if you dodge," the boy yelled, continuing to throw various scrap at him, Izuku yelping to begin with, before climbing higher onto the piles to get out of range. This went on for a couple minutes before Izuku dodged one particular piece of scrap, leaning backwards, before he felt the scrap under him shift. "Ah!" Izuku yelped, falling back as Katsuki suddenly dropped the piece of scrap he was preparing to throw and blasting up to find the boy. "SHD!" Bakugo yelled as he reached the top of the scrap, but instead of seeing Izuku fallen and injured, he saw. "What the hell? I don't know how I did it." Izuku gasped, realizing he was now floating. He sat up as he levitated. It felt like swimming. "Oh, this feels so cool. I can fly," he said, swimming up to his friend. "This is bullshit," Katsuki yelled, annoyed. "Why does your quirk have so many factors?" the boy yelled, grabbing Izuku's shirt and dragging him down to his level. "I don't know, but it's amazing." The boy practically squealed before an idea popped into his head, and he grinned at Bakugo, who paused and then tried to move away in slight fear. "Stop whatever you are thinking, Katsuki yelled, backing away to try get off the pile, before he felt Izuku grab him under his arms and start floating with him in his arms. Hey, let go of me, dumbass." "What's wrong, Kakin?" Scared? He was cut off by a slap to his face as the boy fell out his arms. Katsuki screamed, hurtling toward the ground, as Izuku then began screaming as he realized he no longer was holding the boy. Kakin. No, the boy yelled as he rushed through the air to catch him, quickly doing so before hearing Katsuki burst into laughter in his arms. What's so funny? You could have died, the boy asked, looking worried that he dropped his friend. I can catch myself with my explosions, Katsuki stuttered due to how much he was laughing, face red as he made jokes at his friend's expense. Oh, Izuku paused with him midair. Yeah, you idiot, Katsuki kept laughing, clutching his stomach with pain. Cha! Kakin knew Katsuki mocked. Shut up, I thought you were gonna die, Izuku said, embarrassed. It was like 5 meters. I've fallen out of a tree that's higher, Bakugo said, as Izuku glared at him before dropping Bakugo. Idiot, you're so mean, Izuku pouted, holding out his hand for Bakugo to take. Bakugo rolled his eyes, getting up on his own. All right, enough of this. We're figuring out how your quirk works, he said, crossing his arms as he grinned. I'm fed up of you getting some weird but quirks while we're training. You know I can't control it, Kakin. He frowned. Well, too bad. You're gonna learn to, he yelled, grabbing another bit of trash and chucking it at his brother. Kakin, please get off of me, Izuku yelled, as he was now pinned down by Bakugo. Use your quirk, Bakugo yelled, grinning as he noogied Izuku's head. I'm too tired, Izuku retorted, shutting his eyes as he tried his best to phase, which worked for a moment, long enough for him to stand. Fini, enough for today. Bakugo rolled his eyes, getting up and moving over to the exhausted Midoriya. You did not as shitty as usual. Really? Izuku asked, excited. Sure. Now come on, I'm hungry, he said, smacking Izuku on the back of the head, who let out a yelp. Falling? Katsuki was not prepared for what he saw when he looked up to his friend. His head gone. There was no BLD, just gone. Staring wide-eyed in fear, he backed away, only to hear a voice he didn't think he would at that moment. Kakin? What's wrong? Katsuki froze. What? His eyes trailed down, looking to where he heard the voice to see. He felt sick. The blond boy stared at the now disembodied head of his brother, looking at each other. They both screamed. What the hell? Is this your quirk? Katsuki yelled, resisting the urge to puke as he picked up his friend's head. I don't know. Izuku yelped, looking at him in fear, his body panicking next to them. The boys turned to stare at the now frozen body. It moved, he yelped as it then pointed at the two of them. Izuku paused as Katsuki looked close to throwing up. Wait, Izuku mumbled, feeling as though his head was still connected. He focused, trying to wave his hand. The hand moved. Oh, I think I can. He went silent as he focused, the body moving towards them with its hands outstretched before taking the head from a terrified and disgusted Bakugo. Izuku's body held the head above his neck before a short couple of ribbons reconnected the head, sealing it as though it had never came off in the first place. Izuku's head was filled with possibilities, as Katsuki's throat was filled with acid. I'm gonna be sick, Katsuki yelled before running off behind one of the piles of trash and releasing his last meal onto the sand. Oh God, Kakin, are you okay? Izuku asked, running over, to which he received a glare. Am I okay? Your F-head just came off, Katsuki yelled as he cleaned himself up. Izuku winced, looking worried. I didn't know I could do that, he defended. I know that. You're SHD at keeping secrets, Bakugo retorted as he rolled his eyes. So can we go home now? Izuku groaned, his ears pressed against his head. Sure, but we're testing that freaky SHD again at some point, Katsuki said, punching his friend's arm. I'd really rather not. Well, too bad. It was late at night, and Izuku was ecstatic. You may think that since Izuku knew Aizawa, aka Eraserhead, he wouldn't have been as much of a fan. It would be casual to hear about his next-door neighbor's heroics and just see them as normal. You would be wrong. Izuku had found a video of Eraserhead on one of the forums he frequented. He managed to re-record it on his phone before it was taken down, presumably by Nedzu or someone. Izuku POV. The video was an amazing one. He'd never seen footage of Eraserhead as clear as this. I mean, it was still not the best he'd seen. The darkness made sure of that. But he'd never got to see Eraserhead in action properly. His form was amazing. Sure, Izuku himself probably wouldn't be able to tell if it wasn't, but he knew enough to know how experienced he was. He rewatched the video over and over, adding more and more to analysis as he continued, his tail swishing side to side. If you want to find more, he searched for hours for more info, but it came up blank. He was grateful to know Aizawa was good at hiding his tracks, but he felt so frustrated. Groaning as he got up, popping his back, he went to go grab some water before coming back to his computer. He refreshed the forums over and over. Nothing. Until a new post. Please. Izuku read it quickly, his pupils thinning as he did. I just got my butt handed to me by some guy in a weird scarf and goggles. Anyone got any info on him? Yes. Where was he? He showed up one of the alleys of Mutation. That is usual patrol route. Yes, this keeps getting better. Izuku was practically vibrating in his chair. Maybe he could meet him. The irony of the man he wanted so badly to meet already being his family friend was lost to him. Izuku shot up from his desk, grabbing a cat hoodie he had before pausing as he reached for his bedroom's door. He didn't want to wake his mom. She'd been so busy with work, and she'd ground him if she found out what he was away to do. Izuku sighed before grabbing a face mask he had, pulling it over his mouth and staring out his window. He could do this. Izuku's body faded before he pressed his head through the wall, floating down the sides of the apartment building to reach the ground. It was freezing. He was glad he brought the hoodie. Izuku had been searching for almost an hour. He couldn't spot him anywhere. Mutation is Aizawa's usual route, but maybe he'd already left. Izuku's ears lowered. God, all of this for nothing. And he had school in the morning. Izuku groaned. He should probably just give up and head home. As he moved to turn away from the alley he was currently in, he heard a muffled noise. Huh. Izuku went intangible, stalking down the alley. What had he heard? He shut his eyes, ears twitching as he listened for it again. There. Should Izuku follow strange noises in an alleyway? Nope. Was he going to stop? Also no. Rushing down the alleyway, he saw two figures, a young boy, just older than him, who was now crudely pressed up against the wall, with a man's hand over his mouth. Sicko. Izuku stared wide-eyed, edging closer. It wasn't like they could see him. He just wanted to make sure it wasn't a misunderstanding. No point in screaming. There's no heroes around. Not a misunderstanding. God, what could he do? He didn't know the first thing about combat. Looking around, he found no weapons. That was inconvenient. A quirkless kid like you could fetch a lot. Oh, well, double F this guy. Izuku glared, moving before he could think of a plan. He turned visible before kicking the man in the back of the leg to make him stumble, grunting out. Gee, get away from him. Izuku yelled. God, what was he doing? The boy looked at Izuku with fear in his eyes, before the man holding him turned back. The hell? Trying to play hero's kid? The man said before grinning. Probably would get even more if I could get you Oswell. W what? Izuku asked in fear. SHD. The man moved to grab Izuku, and the world seemed to go in slow motion. What could he do? He knew he barely had enough strength, not enough to win a fist fight against this man. Maybe if he could get just the right hits, though. Well, if he didn't succeed, he would just die or something, but he had to try. For that boy. Izuku moved quickly, shutting his eyes in fear, before aiming a sharp jab at the gap at the bottom of the man's ribs, in which the man gasped, yes. Izuku paused before looking at the boy. Right? No time to see if it worked. He needed to knock this guy out. He remembered someone saying something about jaws being a weak point. One more hit, please. Izuku pulled his fist back before delivering a punch to the bottom of the man's jaw, making the man yell and slump back, unconscious. I did it, Izuku said in the fear, before looking at the boy now staring at him with tears in his eyes. "Why you saved me?" the boy said, his legs shaking. "Why yeah. Are you all right? You should probably run home," he said nervously. The boy stared for a moment before nodding and running off. Thank you so much," the boy yelled before exiting the alley. Now Izuku had to deal with this villain. His tail swished nervously as he pulled out the hoodie string from his hoodie. This probably wouldn't do much. He turned the man over, struggling greatly before tying the man's wrist. He wasn't an expert at ropes, but he thought it was good enough. Standing up again and taking out his phone, he shakily went to dial 110 before pausing. If he called them from his phone, they'd know it was him, and he would get arrested for vigilantism. Looking down at the man, his eyes lit up. He probably had a phone. Searching the man, he grabbed his phone, pressing the emergency call button before typing in the number and waiting for it to answer. "Mizudafu Police Department, what's your emergency?" A voice came through the phone. Izuku looked shakily at the man, now tied up in front of him. "I'd like to report a crime. I mean, kind of my crime, 'cause vigilantism." But, Izuku looked around wide-eyed. There was a man trying to take a quirkless boy to sell him. I think. I knocked him out, and the boy ran off. I tied up the man as best as I could. He paused, looking for the street sign. Street in an alley dash, he said nervously. "Excuse me? You did WH dash," the voice replied in genuine shock. Please send someone to get him." "Sorry. Have a good day, sir," he said nervously as he went to hang up. "Wait, young ma dash." Disconnected. Izuku was going to put the man's phone back before realizing his fingerprints. Izuku stared in fear at the phone before looking around. Maybe he could just throw it away, but the fingerprints would still be there. Izuku shook his head. He could deal with that later. Now he had to go before police showed up. Turning intangible, he rushed home, floating back into his room before gasping for air. "I can't believe I just did that," he whispered, taking off his hoodie before staring at the man's phone. He searched around his room for gloves, putting them on before searching for some disinfectant and scrubbing the phone. He hoped it was enough. Now to destroy it, but he worried. What if the SIM card could be helpful? It would have so much contacts probably. He mumbled before pulling off the back of the phone and nervously pulling out the SIM card. He sighed in relief. He would deal with that later. Tsukachi was having a strange day. It's not every day that one of your coworkers comes over and says there's some random thug that's been tied up in some random alleyway by an unknown civilian, possibly a vigilante. They were on their way now, finding the alley that the boy had apparently mentioned. And sure enough, as they got the alley, there was a man laying slumped with his hands tied behind his back. "That's not something you see every day," he said, going over and watching as Sansa cuffed the man and removed the hoodie string from the man's wrists. "Impressive." Sansa seemed to be searching the man's pockets before sitting up. "Sir, the man's phone is missing." Another officer spoke. "No chance he didn't take it." Sansa shook his head, the bell on his collar jingling slightly. "Guy said that the man was trying to traffic someone. You need to have your contacts ready for that." Tsukachi nodded. "We'll do a search. If not, maybe we can call the phone company to find out where it is." Hopefully, this wasn't a new vigilante on their hands. Smiley cat. 3. Kakin kakanka chankin can. Smiley cat. 3. I did something incredibly stupid. Izuku was curled up in his bed, tail wrapped himself nervously. He checked the time. 1:27. Kakin was asleep. Izuku huffed, putting his phone on his bedside unit before shutting his eyes. Hopefully he did the right thing. Bakugo woke up right on time, washed his face, and began brushing his teeth as he checked his phone. Smiley cat. 3. Kakin kakanka chankin can. Smiley cat. 3. I did something incredibly stupid. The hell? Blasty, what the F? Blasty, what did you do? Smiley cat. 3. I'll tell you on the way to school. Blasty, all right, you nerd. Bakugo was just finishing eating breakfast when his mother walked in. Brat, Izuku's outside waiting for you, so hurry up, she said, ruffling his hair. He rolled his eyes, grabbing his bowl and rinsing it off before leaving it at the sink and putting on his shoes. The air was cold this morning, but Katsuki couldn't tell if that's why the nerd seemed so fidgety or not. It didn't take long for him to come to the conclusion that it was not. Bake, what the hell did you do that needed you to message me at almost 2 in the morning? Bakugo asked, glaring at his clearly nervous friend. Sorry, so you know how I really like heroes and like analyzing them, Izuku asked, as if Katsuki hadn't been with him most of the times while he did it. You're nerdy but notebooks? Yeah, what about them? He asked, making Izuku flinch and look embarrassed. I snuck out last night to see if I could find Eraserhead, because I saw on one of the forums that he had taken down this guy. So, I phased through my wall so I wouldn't be so loud, and searched for him. Izuku explained, looking at Bakugo to see his glare sharpen every second. But I couldn't find him. But when I was away to leave, I heard this noise from the alley. I was in Izuku Midoriya. I swear to All Might, if you heard a weird noise in an alley, and F followed it. Katsuki yelled, grabbing his friend's collar. Izuku looked away sheepishly. And no, Katsuki didn't believe that. Okay, maybe. F idiot. I was curious. And my quirk was active, so it was fine, he said, embarrassed, making Katsuki roll his eyes. So anyways, I went down the alley and saw these two people. One of them was like our age and quirkless, and the other seemed to be a trafficker, F creep. Katsuki scowled, making Izuku kinda surprised. I thought you would have seen it as normal. Jesus nerd. I think they're weak. I don't think they should get F trafficked. Katsuki said, making Izuku smile slightly. Katsuki still cared about people, even when he pretended not to. Katsuki glared as he saw Izuku swish slightly. So then what happened? You call the police or something? Izuku stopped walking. Katsuki turned and glared. I may have. Izuku murmured something. What? I knocked him out. Izuku yelled, hiding his face in his hands as his ears lowered. Izuku moved his fingers to gauge his brother's reaction. He expected some angry yelling, or him to ignore him at least. What he received wasn't that. Bakugo Katsuki burst out laughing. Why you F what? You don't laugh. It was terrifying. I had to tie him up with the strings from my hoodie and . You tied him with F shoelaces? Katsuki laughed even harder, clutching his stomach. I had nothing else. Izuku defended, waving his hands, before pausing and laughing himself. Oh my gosh, why you're right. I tied up a dangerous criminal with shoelaces . F idiot . Katsuki said, punching Izuku's shoulder. So you're wanted now? He wondered, looking at the boy next to him who clearly couldn't hurt a fly. No . Okay, yeah, but it was for a good cause. Actually, maybe I'm not. They have no proof I used my quirk. The guy wouldn't have seen me. The victim was very scared, so I don't think he would have said . He mumbled, Katsuki rolling his eyes. Katsuki wouldn't admit to anyone, but he was secretly worried and equally relieved about Izuku. He was worried that he would have gotten hurt, but he seems perfectly fine. Katsuki waited for Izuku to finish mumbling as they walked through the streets, until he realized, and the two walked in a comfortable silence. The day passed slowly for Izuku. He ignored the rude comments and whispers made about him. It was normal at this point, and he had far bigger problems. Namely, that he was technically a criminal. Oh, and he'd stolen that trafficker's phone. He needed to drop off the SIM card soon, but he needed to sneak into the police station, and God was he terrified to do that. But he couldn't exactly go up to them and go, "Hi there, here's the SIM card of a trafficker that I totally didn't take down." You know, he may be new to this, but he wasn't an idiot. Far from actually. As well as this, there was the issue of what he'd done. Most of the time, people who stepped in to prevent a crime would either go about their life like nothing happened, just thankful to have succeeded, or become heroes, or already were. But while Izuku was aiming to become a hero, he couldn't stop thinking about his new view on life. Even when he researched underground heroes and vigilantes, he never stopped to think how many more people would become victims while he learned about heroics. If Izuku hadn't gone out last night, a boy would be getting trafficked right now. And many more crimes would happen in the years it would take him to complete the UA course. He couldn't let that happen. He wanted to help. Before he knew it, his spiraling had gotten him to the end of the day, and Katsuki had left to go home when Izuku said he was going to go on a walk. Izuku walked and walked, for how long he didn't know. But he reached the beach. Despite all the trash, there were small parts to sit where you could just relax and think. He needed that right now. Walking past the large heaps, he just paused. He didn't know what to do. It just felt like everything was out of his control. He, of course, didn't regret saving that boy, but he probably didn't do very well. Even if he wanted to become a vigilante, how would he? Izuku didn't get a chance to finish that thought before he heard a large crash. Running swiftly, he turned one of the corners of the trash heap and found the source. It was a girl. She looked the same age as him, and she was standing above what looked to be a piece of scrap, surprisingly not broken, after what he assumed was her dropping it. She had slightly strange pink hair and appeared to be wearing goggles. "And miss, are you all right?" Izuku asked, edging closer to the girl who seemed to be staring at the scrap sitting in the sand. At his voice, the girl whisked around before lighting up. "Perfect. You can help me make my babies," she said happily, pink hair bouncing as she moved over to him. Izuku had never gone so red. "W-dash. You look strong, or stronger than me," she mumbled, moving closer to touch his arm, making him flinch. "Yep, stronger. So help me lift the parts for my babies," she said, happy but clearly determined. Izuku stared for a moment, processing babies? But babies don't have parts, and she was just staring at junk. So, "Oh, are you an inventor?" he asked nervously, praying to All Might that he was correct. "Yep, May Hatsum, soon-to-be support course student," she said excitedly. "Your turn." Izuku blinked, his tail swishing nervously behind him. "Oh, Izuku Midoriya, hopefully, soon-to-be hero course student dash," he said nervously. He didn't want to get his hopes up too much. "Really? Well, if you do, you gotta let me do all the upgrades to your costume," she said happily. "Anyways, got some time to spare?" she asked, looking to the large piles of scrap. I'm not sure." He paused. Maybe this could help him get stronger, and maybe he could learn about support stuff for WHC if he became a vigilante. Actually, sure. Time passed quickly with Hatsum, going for slightly awkward teamwork to mostly comfortable in about an hour. The two were pretty similar, just with different interests, and Hatsum was far more unapologetically herself than Izuku. "So, are you going to try for UA?" Izuku asked, tail swishing behind him as he attempted to make conversation with her. May nodded, determined, as she screwed in something. "Yep, their support course is said to be amazing. All the cute babies I could create," she said excitedly before looking at the piles of junk behind them. "I mean, this place is great, but there's only so much some rusted stuff can do for me." Izuku nodded. She sure was amazing, and her skills would come in handy both at the side and in battle. What if he asked her for opinions on? "You have an idea for a support item?" She bounced up, going right in front of him to the point he could stare right in her eyes. They were a bit unsettling up close. Did I say all that out loud? Dash, Izuku went bright red, looking away. I do. Then spill. Izuku looked at her hesitantly, a lump forming in his throat as he tried to think. He didn't want to lie. If he did, then she may make it anyways, and then he just wasted her time. But would she help him if he asked? He wasn't even sure if he could be a vigilante. It was probably just beginner's luck with what happened. Hatsum, how do you feel about vigilantism? He asked hesitantly, clamping his eyes shut as his ears pressed against his hair, not wanting to hear the response he was sure he would. "They're great. Well, I mean, not all of them, but the idea of it is dash." She paused, looking at him with wide eyes and an even wider grin. "Oh my gosh, are you going to dash?" She was cut off as Izuku quickly moved his hand to cover her mouth, before blushing and moving back. Sorry, please don't announce it. I'm not even sure if I could be, but..." Izuku looked away, playing with his claws nervously as the memories of the night before played in his mind. "I want to help people. Too many people could become victims while I'm learning how to be a hero." May stared at him for a moment before smiling and hugging him tight, making the now very flustered boy flinch back, but he didn't push her off. "Oh, you're going to be my favorite client yet." "Oh, really? You would help me?" Dash, Izuku completely faltered. He never expected anyone to help him with this, if he was going through with it. Never mind someone he just met. and a girl. Of course. As long as you're doing good, I would be super happy to have you as a client. We're going to make so many babies together. And then Izuku died of embarrassment. After Izuku had calmed down, only a slight pink dusting his cheeks, the two began discussing their ideas. "So, what are you wanting made?" Hatsum asked, trying to hide the fact she was practically vibrating from excitedness. I want to go out at night to help people, but I need to have a face covering. One that covers my face fully but doesn't hinder me in any way," he said, mumbling more towards the end. "And if it isn't an issue, I don't want it to look scary. I know many vigilantes go for a more scary theme, but I still want people to see me and feel relieved, like a hero. That shouldn't be a problem. My babies are always adorable, and the cat theme will really make you look approachable," Mei said, pointing to Izuku's ears, which lowered with embarrassment. "Oh, well, I'm not sure if I could keep the ears. Wouldn't it give me away?" Izuku asked, looking away. He disliked when people pointed out his features. It irked him, knowing that for most of his life, everyone's first impressions and stigmas of him would either be that he was seen as cute and disarming or creepy and unsettling, each one dehumanizing him, either a pet or a threat. Don't worry about that. Animal-based mutant quirks are pretty common. Plus, Mei paused, her eyes softening slightly. Izuku, not even aware she could lose some of the energy. "You should embrace who you are. Quirks are always going to determine what people think of us. If you worry too much about others' opinions, you'll never live." Izuku decided he liked Hatsum. He went home soon after, clutching his phone excitedly as he stared at the new contact in his phone. Mei Hatsum. He stared at the contact till he reached his apartment, opening his front door to find his mother in the kitchen. Usually she wasn't home yet. "Hi, Mom," Izuku greeted, putting down his school bag at the front door and taking off his shoes before walking into the kitchen. "Hi, sweetie. I managed to leave early, so I made you your favorite," Inko announced happily, moving away from the counter to reveal the katsudon she'd made. "Why don't you go get dressed in a comfier clothing and I'll dish it up?" Izuku nodded. He practically collapsed on his bed as soon as he shut his door. Today had been good, but that didn't ease the exhaustion at all. He groaned, pulling out his phone before hesitantly pressing the message icon next to his new contact. "Izuku, hi. This is Izuku from the beach, happy face." He didn't wait for a reply before putting down his phone and getting dressed. Katsudon was all he wanted right now. Screw possible vigilante activities. His mom wasn't home, so he wanted to savor what time she did spend there. Not that he blamed her. By nighttime, he felt better. He had eaten and showered and was now energized. His tail swished as he looked around his room to try find something to do. After a moment, his eyes locked on to the familiar SIM card on his desk. "All right," he yelled as he shot up from his bed, knowing his mother was asleep in the other room. He should give it to the police. He was careful not to get prints on it, but he didn't want his mom to clean his room and question it, or worse, get her prints on it. Pulling back on the gloves he paused. He couldn't just leave a SIM card unmarked in a police station. He knew it wouldn't get thrown away. Hopefully, but it would certainly make more sense to leave a note. Ripping out a page from his school book, he placed it on the desk before he began writing. He rambled for pretty much most of it, but when he came to writing his name, he paused. Obviously, he wouldn't write his actual name or anyone else's. He wasn't an idiot. But what could he write? He thought on it before pausing and signing it. He knew it may be slightly risky. People did call him it, but hopefully by the time people noticed or tried to investigate him, he would have no contact with anyone calling him that, minus Bakugo, of course. But he used a shortened version anyways. Signed, Bakaniko. The night was cold, even with his hoodie pulled over his head to hide himself in case any camera saw him. He had his hands tucked in his pocket, holding an envelope addressed to Kenji Tsurigami. He'd done research, but it didn't take more than one search to find out the head of the police department. As he saw the street the police station was on, he turned on his quirk, being careful to notice no one was around. "Here goes nothing," he whispered to himself as he walked up, relieved at the fact the automatic doors opened as someone left, so it wouldn't look suspicious that they opened from nothing. In fairness, he didn't think the receptionist would be too on guard, but he wanted to be careful. Looking around, his ears twitched, noticing voices past one of the doors. He phased through the doors, relieved to find the letter phase 2 since it was inside his clothes. Thank All Might, he thought as he noticed the desks for police officers. Oh God, he was really doing this. Walking forward, he looked at each name tag, dodging and maneuvering to find the head officer. Then he realized, if he's the head, he probably has his own office. Idiot. Izuku looked, noticing an office with a window, looking on the door to find the nameplate. Caption of Mizudafu Police, Kenji Tsurigami. Stealing his nerves. He went to press on the door before flinching as someone walked right through him. Sir, there's been a development on one of the cases. Could you come take a look? The officer who had walked through him without knowing he was present, asked. Izuku flinched as he realized the captain had the head of a beagle. He wasn't quirkist. Why on earth would he be? He loved quirks. It's just he wasn't expecting it. The beagle nodded, thankfully not walking through Izuku as he moved out of the way. As the door shut, and they were on their way to a desk across the station, Izuku walked through the door. Before becoming tangible, just not visible, he walked behind the desk, double-checking it was the right one before placing down the letter on the desk, relaxing as the letter became visible. Izuku sighed, turning intangible again before walking out of the station as though nothing had happened. He hoped it would work. Good work on the case. I'm glad someone noticed it, or dash, Kenji paused. There was a letter on his desk. Usually not a big deal. He got reports and mail from other companies and precinct a lot. But this was unmarked. No one had delivered it. It was placed there. Sir, is everything all right? One of the officers asked as he paused and stared at his desk. Kenji thought for a moment before turning. Is Mizu in today? He asked, one of the officers nodding before going to grab him. Once they returned, Kenji motioned to the letter on his desk. Is it safe? Mizu looked at the letter, eyebrows furrowing as he activated his quirk. It was a simple but useful one, able to tell the risk of objects. It's safe, Mizu announced, much to the relief of Kenji, who went to open it. Thank you, Mizu. You're dismissed, he said, looking over the envelope. It was addressed to him, slightly messy handwriting, but legible. Opening it, he found a note. From what he could deduct, it was done pretty quickly. Kenji Tsurigami. Hi. You don't know me. I wasn't really planning on this entire situation, but since it happened, I wanted to help. I'm assuming you're aware that recently some of your officers were brought to a scene that had a mugger tied up after trying to traffic someone. I'm hoping so anyways. That means my call worked. Also, please apologize to whoever got the call. I was very panicked. Anyways, I used a man's phone to phone it in, and I took it. I'm very sorry. But it had my prints on it, and I panicked. Anyways, here's the SIM card for the phone. I hope it's helpful. Very sorry for the vigilantism. I mean, not really, but sorry for the extra work. Thank you for reading, I hope. Back in Nico. Huh. Not at all what he was expecting. Looking back in the envelope, sure as hell there was the SIM card. Obviously not a very experienced vigilante. This envelope and the paper were obviously prepared in a rush. Shutting the envelope and putting it in his pocket, he walked out, holding the note. Sakachi, the black-haired man, turned to look at him, as did the other officers. You were one of the arresting officers for that restrained thug? Tsukachi nodded. Me and Sansa, why? Kenji held out the note for Tsukachi to read, other officers peeking over to read it. 2. Looks like the vigilante reached out, left the attacker's SIM card. He said, placing the now opened envelope on the man's desk. The silence stretched throughout the room, covering the entire force. Yeah, that was a strange night. Izuku got home with ease. It wasn't like intangibility could be loud, and he was light on his feet, so his mom was none the wiser as he went into his room and began taking off the mask and the hoodie he'd worn, pausing for a moment to stare down at them. They worked fine for night, but they wouldn't be a long-term solution, especially if he wanted to be seen as a vigilante and not just a random thug who could scare victims. That was what he was thinking as he went to text Hatsum. 1708. May Hatsum. Oh, oh, hi. 2317 Izuku. Hi, Hatsum. Laughing face, just got home. Are you still awake, Carrot? Izuku waited for a response, pulling up his covers from his bed and snuggling into them. He really hoped he'd done the right thing. He knew it could backfire, but he would rather it backfire now than before he'd given them the SIM card. He was about to give up and close his eyes when he heard ping from his phone and turned it over. May Hatsum. Yep, just cleaning up from my last test run. One of my babies malfunctioned. Omega. Izuku Adi. May Hatsum. Anyways, Carrot, what's up? Izuku. I was just wondering if you wanted to discuss plans for the support items. Carrot. But if you're too busy RN, I understand. Laughing face. May Hatsum. I am here, D. May Hatsum. I have so many ideas. 3. Most of the next few hours consisted of the just rambling. Eventually, the bright screen of Izuku's phone making his eyes sting. Every time his eyes shut, it became harder to open them, before eventually being lulled into a sleep full of dreams. Thank you for joining us on this journey through What If Deku Had Cat Mutation Quirk. We hope you found it as captivating as we did. A big thank you to LotsieLotto for creating such an engaging story. Don't forget to visit their profile on archiveofourown.org for more fantastic works. The link is in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Zenin Fanfics for more intriguing explorations into fanfiction and fantasy. Your support helps us create more content like this, and we love hearing your thoughts and suggestions in the comment section. See you soon in the next video.